Welcome to the Crab Jail. I'm Thea, and today we'll be continuing my deep dive of The Last Dregs, the quest line for the Omicron tribal quest. But before I start, my illiteracy has striked again, and this time it's Stigma 4, not Sigma 4. One day I will be able to read, but today is not that day. Today, we'll be discussing two of the factions that have been in the game for a very long time, with one of them being all the way from the dungeon Keeper of the Lake, I believe, the Dragons and the Omicrons. Because we have been learning about the Dragons' history since we first met Midgard Sommer in a level 50 dungeon, I'm just going to do a basic overview of what we have learned through the MSQ of the game already. The Omicrons were invading other stars in order to become stronger. They believed that the dragons were the strongest, so the dragon star was the last they had conquered. As a result of this invasion, the land had become not suitable for life, and dragon eggs were starting to become contaminated, and were either dying or they became hostile when they hatched, which we saw in Endwalker's MSQ. Midgard Sommer fled the star with 7 pristine eggs, hoping to find a place to raise them and continue the legacy of the Dragon Star. He came to the source and made a deal with Hydaelyn to protect Silvertear in exchange for shelter on the new star. The eggs hatched and became the first brood. Through the various expansions of Final Fantasy XIV, you learn what happens to all the members of this brood. As part of the dungeon, the Stigma Dreamscape, you witness a simulation of the Omicron invasion of the Dragon Star. And you see that the Omicrons had created hybrid dragons, which is kind of messed up. There's no indication of how they were created, but to me, I believe that they took dragons and augmented them with their technology before using Stigma for its ability to mind hack like it does to us in the boss fight to control them. In this scenario, the dragons could be fighting their loved ones, and that's pretty awful. In terms of the tribal quest, Jammingway suggests to try getting the dragons from the Dynamis to the cafe, but N7000 is extremely wary about going because, the Omicrons kind of destroyed the world and all. However, you press on, and Jammingway tries to converse with one of the dragons of Ultima Thule, but they don't really show any emotion, because they've practically spent an eternity in mourning, and they're just emotionally drained. In order to rouse their spirits, you head to Coerthas with Jammingway and an adorable mini Omicron that N7000 uses as a proxy to talk to Vidofnir. Also, as a side note, can we get that mini Omicron as a minion? It's very cute, and I would like it. Going back on topic, Vidofnir tells you that the peaks of the Dragon Star were very sacred to her ancestors. And when Midgard Sommer was looking for a place to raise the new brood, he chose Som-Al as the new home because it reminded him of the Dragon Star. So you gather ingredients to create a dessert to help the dragons of Ultima Thule to remember what their home was like and how much they loved it. It works, and they assure N7000 that they are willing to let bygones be bygones. This creates a reaction in the Dynamis, and a new section of Elysian is formed. This new section features the beloved peaks of the Dragon Star that shelter a new clutch of eggs. This shows that the dragons have a newfound hope for the future. I somehow didn't get a screenshot of the section when I did this rank up quest. I don't know why, but I unfortunately cannot go back and do that because I completed the quest and it changes. So, whoops. Like the dragons, the Omicrons have been discussed across multiple expansions. To summarize, they were weak and squishy organic beings, so they began to use technology to augment their bodies to become stronger. Eventually, they left their organic forms behind and became fully robotic. They used these forms to conquer their star, and their conquest depleted all the natural resources they had. Unsure of what to do from there, There was a bit of a civil war between a group that wanted to try to save their world and another group that wanted to conquer other ones for resources. The latter came out on top, and they began to take over other stars. You can see a glimpse of this in the first section of the Stigma Dreamscape dungeon. As I mentioned before, the Omicrons thought the dragons were the strongest in the universe, so the Dragon Star was the last world they conquered. After that, there was nothing left. So Stigma 4, the lead strategist of their civilization, went dormant, and the rest of the Omicrons were left with no directives. So they fell to disrepair and their civilization died out, with the exception of the Omega unit that chased after Midgardsormr. After defeating the Endsinger, Stigma 4 reawakens and sends a directive to all Omicrons at Ultima Thule. Simply live. This is what causes Stigma 4 to go haywire and sets the stage for the Stigma Dreamscape dungeon and in turn the last Dregs questline. With the success of the cafe, N7000 feels that its mission is complete and will shut down permanently. After getting to a fight with Janeway, it says it's going to upload its data before it's shut down and takes off. You go after it and learn it has gone to the Tree of Life. You talk, and it mentions how the one Stigma 1 proxy would come to the location to think, and how it didn't quite fit N7000's logic. You start having a philosophical discussion about what happens, and N7000 goes into multi-sim mode and gets so absorbed into processing that it starts to overheat. Of course, Janeway is worried about N7000, so they decide to do what they do best, make some sort of food that helps somehow. So they go to Stigma 4 for ideas, and it tells them basically, and this is exactly what I wrote in my notes, and I find this is comedy gold. Stigma 4 basically says, food is irrelevant to us, the bitch needs coolant. So you go get the ingredient you need, and Janeway makes the coolant. Stigma 4 transports N7000 to the last Dregs, and you basically force the coolant into N7000. It wakes up, says something incomprehensible, pulls up a screen, and is just like, gotta go, and runs off. Of course, you and Janeway are utterly confused, so you go after it. You find that it went into Elysian, and when you get there, you find a small forest of trees of life. You find N7000 among the trees, and it says its mission always conflicted with its protocols, and that it struggled to process how these changes to Elysium were possible because all the entities in Ultima Thule had been long dead, merely recreations created by Dynamis. It had struggled with its purpose and Stigma 4's directive to live, but the coolant that Janeway makes helps it realize that there is more to living than simply carrying out your tasks and objectives. You get to pick your response, but I chose the one I did because I really love the sentiment. You're here now, and you are alive. It also goes on to acknowledge the Omicron's part in many civilizations meeting their end, that they should be held accountable for these actions, which is why N7000 believes the last Dregs and the work they are doing is so important. It is their way of helping to make amends for the Omicron's transgressions, by helping the ones they had previously conquered create new life and hope for the future. N7000 also believes that what the last Dregs has accomplished so far and all the changes to Elysian is just the start of a new future for the Omicrons. You have proven that there are endless possibilities that cannot be computed or predicted, and they can make these possibilities a reality. And then it gives an extremely simple yet profound statement. We shall atone, and we shall live. Janeway realizes that they never celebrated any of their accomplishments, so the three of you enjoy a picnic among the new forests. They mentioned they had the idea of helping others through the cafe, but never saw that the cafe was helping them as well. After a toast, N7000 realizes what happiness feels like for the first time. That is it for this segment of the deep dive. Next time, I'll go over a mini-faction as well as the questline's conclusion. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time on The Crab Jail.